you're in Flatbush in the Korean community, if you're in Sunset Park in the Chinese community, if you're in Rockaway, if you're out in Queens in the Dominican community, Washington Heights, all of you have that power to fuel us. We are so divided right now, and we're missing the beauty of our diversity. We have to end all of this division of who we are, where we go to worship, what do we wear. No, today we take off the intramural jersey and we put on one jersey, Team New York.
As the mayor of the city of New York, I don't, weigh into immigration issues, border issues. I have to provide services for families that are here, and that's what we're going to do. And that's what our responsibility as a city. I'm proud that this is a right to shelter state, and we're going to continue to do that. 110,000 migrants. We have to feed, clothe, house, educate the children, wash their laundry sheets, give them everything they need, health care. We're getting no support on this national crisis. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. It is the irresponsibility of the Republican Party in Washington for refusing to do real immigration reform, and it's the irresponsibility of the White House for not addressing this problem.
So how much are you asking for? What are you asking the government for? In terms of dollars, how much are you asking?
Well, in the 3 years, this is a $12 billion price tag. So far, we have $100 million, a little over $100 million that we received. This is their issue. This is a national issue, and it should be treated as such. And so when people say, well, we gave them $100 million, $12 billion bill?
Yeah.
I mean, what
so
table
what
are we dining at?
When you...
Breaking news, New York Mayor Eric Adams confirming that the FBI has seized a cell phone from him as part of a federal investigation. This coming just days after FBI agents executed a search warrant at the home of Adams' chief fundraiser.
New York Mayor Eric Adams facing a lawsuit by a woman claiming he sexually assaulted her in 1993.
This is a classic political hit job. Accuse someone of some Me Too crap or political corruption. The Democrats aren't playing with Eric Adams because he got out of line. He started criticizing the Democrat Party too much, started criticizing Joe Biden openly for months on end, unrelenting criticism of the Biden administration, everything going on at the border, constantly reminding the public that the border is wide open because Biden and his handlers wanted to let these illegal immigrants in the middle of the night. They come in, nobody's paying attention. Next thing you know, is 100,000 of them in New York. But Eric Adams was running his mouth too much. He got too close to the sun. He was feeling good, talking about Kansas. Nobody wants to go to Kansas. Kansas sucks. New York is the best state in the world. I'm the mayor, the leader of the best, greatest place on earth. And Biden is messing everything up. So he started doing all this open criticism of Biden. So the DNC said, look, just like we did the New York governor, Andrew Cuomo, the one that we were pretending that he was going to be a great president, the one that we were saying he's the anti-Trump and he's such a great man. When he was no longer politically useful to us, we threw him out like garbage. Eric Adams, don't you know we can do the same to you? So Eric Adams is being politically assassinated right before our eyes. And a lot of the Democrat voters are going to go right along with it. They're going to actually say, man, yeah, he's pretty corrupt. This is terrible. We need to get rid of this guy, as if the rest of the Democrat Party and many Republicans too, as if most of these politicians aren't filthy, corrupt, running money, doing all types of dirty stuff. But Eric Adams, your time is up. You got too close to the sun. Let's talk about what's going on. This is the Vice Signal Podcast. So New York City is going through all types of issues because they're a sanctuary city. They're opening their arms to migrants, and now they're being flooded with over 10,000 of them. So we're going to get into that story. We're going to get into what's going on with Eric Adams and how Biden and the DNC are punishing him. But first, we're going to talk about our lead story. We're going to talk about Derek Chauvin. You guys may remember the name Derek Chauvin because Derek Chauvin is the most infamous person in the penitentiary right now. He's the guy responsible for the death of George Floyd, allegedly, because his knee was on the neck area, shoulder area of George Floyd when George Floyd died. So Derek Chauvin, he's serving a 21-year federal sentence for violating federal civil rights laws, and concurrently he's serving 22 and a half years state for murdering George Floyd. He was convicted in the state of Minnesota for murdering George Floyd. He just got shanked. So he's down there in Arizona. He's in Tucson in this federal prison down there because allegedly this prison is supposed to be safer. You know, he's a former cop. So oftentimes when cops go to jail, if they go to prison or jail in their own region, they may have been involved with some of the prisoners. They may have been investigated, may have helped locked up, testified against some of the inmates. So they see him, they find out, oh, you the guy who helped put me in here, or you are a cop. He might get beat down, he might get raped, he might get shanked, he might get deleted. So they said, okay, we're not going to have him here. We're just going to put him in a medium security level prison in Arizona where it's going to be safer, allegedly safer, but obviously not because he got shanked. Apparently somebody or multiple people stabbed him and they found him laid out. The prison is saying, well, we have short staff, we can't stop everything, and they're trying to keep everything close to the hip. They didn't want this getting out, but they had to rush him to the hospital because he was about to die, but they were able to save him. He's going to recover, and they're going to put him right back in there, I guess. I don't know what the plan is for the future, but if he's in a medium security area, if he's in there with the general population, I don't know, man. They might have a hit out on him. And people on the outside, some of these people who were doing these riots, the Summer of Love, it all started with Derek Chauvin and George Floyd. Some of these people out there, they might have an agenda, and they may be trying to take him out. So if they're trying to keep this man alive, he might need to be in an area alone or something, maybe a high-profile area or something, because I don't know if it's a good idea to send him back there. But he got shanked, and the left had a whole lot of fun with it. Let's take a look at some of the clips.
Okay, so boom. So inmate Chauvin got shanked in the pen the other night. But see, you gotta do right by people because you get your karma, good or bad. So how the day you deserve. Bye.
What do we have here? I am just so shocked. Ex-officer Derek Chauvin convicted in George Floyd killing, stabbed in prison. You know, you can know something's gonna happen, and then when it happens, it's still fun.
I'm not looking at anyone. If someone could... I've been stabbed. Sandra, I've been stabbed. I don't know what I did.
So here's the thing about Derek Chauvin. I don't think he should be in prison. A lot of people say, well, he was a racist cop. He killed the black man. Just because it was a white man involved in the death of a black man doesn't mean race was involved. There was never any indication that it was a racial thing. People just threw that out there because the media and the left knew that they could fuel more anger, fuel more outrage, and push people to riot if they said, oh, it was racial. Because they've been using these race war tactics in the United States for decades. But George Floyd had OD. When you look at the labs, you looked at autopsy, they said there was no suffocation, asphyxiation, there's no damage to his trachea, nothing on the neck area. Where the media made people believe that Derek Chauvin put his knee on George Floyd's neck. And they're talking about 8 minutes, 9 minutes, whatever it was. And that's what killed him. But if you look at the whole video, George Floyd was complaining about not being able to breathe well before, several minutes before they had him on the ground, before Derek Chauvin even touched him. He was in the back of the cop car talking about he was uncomfortable, he couldn't breathe right, things were going well, his heart was racing. They took him out, they put him on the ground, he just wasn't feeling well because he had OD. George Floyd was on fentanyl. You have the stress of this whole situation, him getting arrested, him being pinned down by the cop, and he had OD'd. 100,000 Americans OD'd last year from fentanyl. It happens multiple times every day throughout the United States. It's an absolute crisis. Fentanyl's pouring in across the border, Canadian border and the Mexican border. But the Biden administration, these politicians, they want to talk about that. We have a fentanyl crisis in the United States. George Floyd was one of thousands, tens of thousands of people who OD on this. But because of the mob, because the media and these politicians have stirred up racial tension, and because of the history of other people, like you had Michael Brown, we had Trayvon Martin, we had Tamir Rice, some of these people wrongfully killed, and some of them looks like the cops use force properly. But we've had years of these tensions building up. We had years of people like Obama stirring up the pot, causing more racial tension throughout the country. So all of it came to a head. You got the shutdown going on. People had been shut down for months at this point. Locked up in the house, don't know what to do, out of work, running out of money. So a lot of frustration. You got racial frustration, financial, all types of stress going on, along with the media and these politicians just manipulating people. All of it came to head right on Derek Chauvin's head. So he was offered up as a sacrifice to beg the left to stop, to beg the mob to stop. Look, we know that this man should be convicted. Like the judge said, the judge actually suggested that Derek Chauvin appeal because he didn't have the guts to dismiss the case, even though the jury was corrupted. They know that man shouldn't have been convicted, and the case should have been thrown out because the entire jury pool was corrupted, but they locked him up anyway. They said, look, you're going to take away from the team, Derek Chauvin, because these other cops may have gotten away with some. They may or may not have. Some cops may or may not have gotten away with doing some dirty crap. So you're going to take one for all of them. We're going to sentence you to decades in prison for handling a suspect who had already OD'd before you touched him. So maybe you having him on the ground like that, maybe it added to his stress, maybe put more stress on his heart. But he had already OD'd, but you're going to prison for this. And there's a video, it was kind of scrubbed from Google, but Minnesota Police Department, they had a PowerPoint. The Minneapolis Police Department, they literally trained their police officers to subdue suspects like that, with the knee on the shoulder area, the neck area. Hold them down like there's especially a large male suspect. You need to hold them down this way. They literally trained Derek Chauvin to do this. But still, because they were afraid of the mob, because it was a kangaroo court, they were afraid of the mob, Banana Republic style, they threw the book at him. But yeah, he got stabbed, the left is celebrating, and he'll be in prison for a few decades because he actually tried to appeal. It didn't work. So I guess it's probably too early because it's been a couple of years. He needs to do probably a few more years. Eventually, he'll probably be at the point where he may get out. I don't know if he's going to do the whole 22 years, but yeah, crazy situation. In other news, speaking about deaths, we're going to talk about what's going on in Israel. So Turkey, a U.S. ally, a NATO member, the country with the largest, the most powerful military in Europe and the Middle East area, Turkey is hosting a flotilla to go to Israel, to go to Gaza, to support the Gazans. The Turkish president Erdogan is part of the Islamic Brotherhood. He's one of the main guys. He has a lot of notoriety among the Muslims. And the Turkish people, they were secular. After the fall of the Ottoman Empire, they moved to a more secular state. But in recent decades, they've shifted back to what they were a while ago. They are more Muslim. They're more religious. And they hate what's going on. You see all types of outcries, protests going on in Turkey against Israel. You see Erdogan, the president of Turkey, speaking out against Israel, threatening Israel, telling Israel, if you don't stop killing these civilians in Gaza, we're going to have to come after you. We see all that going on. Remember, this is a NATO member state. So they're hosting a flotilla. Apparently, they're saying it's not government sponsored, but 1,000 unarmed, non-combatant vessels, boats, and ships are going to leave Turkey. They're supposed to be leaving on Wednesday to go to Gaza to provide humanitarian aid. Here's the problem. 10 years ago, or really 13 years ago, back in 2010, when Gaza and Israel were having issues, because this has been going on for decades, Turkey sent a vessel there to help them, a few vessels, and the Israelis took charge of these vessels, and 10 Turkish civilians ended up being murdered by the IDF, by the Israeli army. And Israel paid restitution, tens of millions of dollars, to the families over there in Turkey to kind of calm things down. So now Turkey is basically provoking Israel. They're trying to do this again. They're saying, we're going to send even more. We're going to have 1,000 unarmed vessels show up to Israel, to Gaza, to provide humanitarian aid to the Gazans, because they've been getting bombed by the Israeli military. And we're going to see if Israel tries to stop us, because Israel has completely blockaded Gaza. They're not letting anything in there. They just want to completely crush these people, give them no hope, and make them lose the will to stay in their land. In fact, while that's going on, the Europeans, the U.S.'s flunkies, are trying to pay. They're bribing Egypt to accept the Gazans, even though Egypt has outright refused to. They've been refusing to ever since this conflict started. But Turkey is saying, okay, we're going to see. Is Israel going to try something? Is Israel going to seize these vessels? Are they going to try to kill non-combatant civilians? And also, some of the civilians, word is, some of them are activists, and they're saying that they're going to try to disrupt the flow of trade into Israel. Now, this is going to be a little tough on Israel because, one, all of these ships aren't Turkish. They're leaving from Turkey, but some of them from Russia, some of them are from Spain, and other European countries who are friendly with the United States. So U.S. is having a problem because U.S. has their little toy, their flunky, Israel, they claim as their greatest ally, even though Israel never helped the U.S. in any wars. But U.S.'s favorite country, Israel, having issues with a NATO member. In fact, the most powerful NATO member outside of the United States. So what does the U.S. do if things heat up between Turkey and Israel? Interesting question. It looks like the U.S. is going to be forced to pick sides. Right now, they're trying to calm things down. The president of Turkey, Erdogan, he's openly supported Hamas. He doesn't call them terrorists. He calls them freedom fighters. He's on friendly terms with Iran. He's openly condemned Israel. And his military, he can mobilize 2 million men on the ground in a matter of 30 to 60 days. Not that far from Israel. He can march through Lebanon, and he can be on Israel's doorsteps. Israel is a very small country. So Israel is surrounded by enemies. You're surrounded by very powerful states. You got Iran to your east. You got Egypt to your south. And you got Turkey to your north. And we're talking about countries that can really put Israel in some extreme danger. So it's a very interesting situation. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. Hopefully it doesn't escalate to the point where Turkey does mobilize, because if Turkey fully mobilizes against Israel, Egypt is probably going to mobilize too, because Egypt, the Egyptian leadership, is under a lot of pressure to mobilize. And we don't know what's going to happen with Iran, and the United States is going to be under a strain trying to support Israel against all of these opposing countries, and one of them is a NATO member. So they're very interesting dynamics going on down there. Meanwhile, Bud Light's back in the news. You know, Bud Light's the gift that keeps on giving. So we're going to talk about what's going on with Bud Light. But first, if you guys like my channel, you want to support my channel, you want to support me, I want you guys to check out some of my merch. Check out tvsmerch.com. Pick up some of the gear I have over there, including my new mug, my We Will Not Comply mug, a message to these hard left extremists who want to start the lockdowns, who want to restart these lockdown policies because we're in election years. These people who want us to walk around with filthy masks on our face, while companies that make the masks make record profits. They want to put us back in the 2020, 2021 fear-mongered COVID era. But that's not going to happen. They come down with these mask policies, we will not comply. So check out the website, see what you like. tvsmerch.com.
Bud Light sales are still struggling as backlash against the brand continues. Parent company Anheuser-Busch InBev reported a 13.5% drop in revenue for the third quarter. Sales of Bud Light have been down since April. That's when the company launched a promotion featuring a transgender influencer. Anheuser-Busch says most of its global regions reported a growth in revenue, but that's been offset by the drop in U.S. sales.
You know, guys, I think Bud Light has learned his lesson. Here's the problem. Bud Light refuses to acknowledge what they did. They refuse to acknowledge that them engaging with that transgender dude, them making that ad, putting the can out, Alicia Heinerscheid, the marketing exec, talking crap about the customers. They refuse to acknowledge that this was a betrayal of the values of their customer base. But they've learned their lesson. I've been following them over the last several months, and their actions show that they learned a lesson. Now, I'm not saying they're out of the dark, and I'm not saying we're going to drink it, but look at what they're doing. So they had all these commercials. They partnered with the military. They giving all these scholarships to the veterans. They were at that motorcycle event where no one showed up to their booth. They were at the other beer booth, but nobody showed up to the motorcycle booth. They partnered with Travis Kelce with the grunt commercial I talked about a while ago. So they've done all these things to try to say, hey, look, we know that we messed up, but we're macho, we're manly, and we understand your customer base, and we're on you guys' side. We know that these left woke activist freaks only talk on Twitter. They're not going to buy our products, so we can pander to them all we want, but they'll never buy our products the way that you guys do. So they're trying to say they're sorry without saying it. So the last time I talked about Bud Light, they had partnered with UFC. They outbidded Modelo, which is the number one beer now. They overtook Bud Light to be the number one beer in America. They outbidded Modelo, gave UFC a 9-figure check, and said, look, let us be the sponsor of UFC. UFC, you talk about macho, you talk about manly, and you talk about conservative values. So let's take a look at this compilation here showing the UFC. We had Trump enter with Dana White. Trump was greeted by a roaring crowd. I said, damn, what is this, a king or something? So let's take a look at this clip contrasting Joe Biden, Donald Trump in the UFC. So they going full-blown MAGA. Bud Light has said, look at this company, the fighters, the leadership at the company, the fan base, they all love Trump. When Trump walks into a UFC stadium, the crowd roars. It is a Trump building. So Bud Light said, okay, we're going full MAGA. UFC loves the hell out of them some Donald Trump. Okay, we're going to partner with the UFC. So it's wild. It's crazy to see it because Bud Light, they in a heap of trouble still. They're not out of the dark. The third quarter this year, their sales are still down. They're down 13.5% in sales, 17% in the third quarter in the U.S. alone. Now, this is AB InBev, the entire company. So Bud Light and all the other brands under Bud Light, the entire company was down in sales 17% in the third quarter. In earnings, they're down 29%. But when you look at Bud Light alone, the sales are even more than that. Remember, this company lost valuation, $40 billion in valuation. So they're losing a whole lot of money. And the chief of marketing, who was over the lady Alicia Heinerscheid, who insulted the customers, he was even higher in the food chain than her. He's stepping down. I don't know if he was axed. Is he getting out of there? But he's gone from Bud Light. He's out. And the CEO is saying that they're doing a lot of turnover in a company. So they laid off some mid-level employees, a couple of hundred mid-level employees, and some of the executives are out. Now, we still haven't heard from the lady herself, Horseface, who insulted the customers. We don't know where the hell she is. I think she's out. Rumor was months ago that she was out. We haven't heard from her. We haven't seen her. So they're making a lot of churn in the company. The CEO has tried his best to apologize without apologizing because he's still afraid of those woke activist freaks. He's afraid that they're going to insult him on Twitter. So he won't just come out right and denounce what they did, but all of his actions show that he's denounced it. Even Dylan Mulvaney himself slammed Bud Light for not supporting him, and these activist freaks have also boycotted Bud Light because they're saying, well, Bud Light doesn't support trans people. They hate LGBT LMNOP people. So Bud Light, I don't think they hate or love anybody. The only thing that they love is money. They're trying to figure out where the money is. That's why they partnered with Dylan Mulvaney, because they're thinking, well, the younger generation, they are more into this LMNOP crap, this legitimacy crap. So we need to hire one of these legitimacy people, a trans person, and market to the young people. But they didn't realize, first of all, most of these young people are broke. And second of all, they'll give you praise on TikTok and Twitter, but they don't spend money. The ones that even have money, they don't spend money. They just give you a pat on the back. So they realize, oh, wait, our market base, our money is in a conservative base that's been buying product from us for years. And Democrats who can buy a beer without thinking about politics. So they realize they need to move far away from this legitimacy crap. They need to move far and away from Dylan Mulvaney, so far away that they land right in the lap of Donald Trump. They went to Trump Nation. Bud Light has gone full-blown MAGA. Very interesting turn of events. So we'll see, probably next year, we'll see what their sales look like, and if all of these actions they've been taking helps them out at all. But back to this whole New York thing. So I want you guys to take a look at how some of the people of New York feel. Some of these people who voted for Joe Biden in New York feel. Take a look.
My message is close the border, vet these people. Like, how come they get to cut the line in front of millions of people waiting? They're waiting to come to America the right way, but they get, like, pushed in front. The migrants, the illegal migrants. They get everything. They put them first, put Americans last. We need to be America first, not Americans last.
Do you think that AOC was responsive to messages like this?
No, she cut her little press conference early because of us. She kept on talking the same thing. Housing for migrants, work for migrants. But what about our homeless veterans? What about our homeless Americans? She puts the migrants first, us last.
So she's speaking on behalf of millions of New Yorkers, millions of New Yorkers who hated Trump, who was also a New Yorker, who went out there in droves and voted for Eric Adams. They voted for Joe Biden. They were all for the sanctuary city status. They were all for condemning places like Texas. Talking about Texas, you guys are a bunch of assholes. You're a bunch of racist bigots because you won't take care of illegal immigrants. But lo and behold, when illegal immigrants come to New York, oh, we got to cut budget. We don't want to cut our budget. What about us? What about the homeless? Well, isn't that what Texas was saying the entire time? But you guys didn't give a damn because you didn't have to deal with the crisis. But now the crisis is here. So why are you bitching and crying now? But what's happened is Eric Adams has pissed off the wrong people. Eric Adams, because he's trying to look out for his city. I mentioned Brandon Johnson. I talked about how Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, isn't really in control of the politics, the governance of Chicago. He's a manager. He's a stooge of the larger Democrat Party, and he has to go along to get along. He has to go along with the policies that the DNC pushes down. And Eric Adams is the same. If you want to be a mayor of a major Democrat city, then you need to play ball. You need to do whatever the larger powers that be in the Democrat Party tell you to do. Once you start stepping out of line, you become a political liability. So if you want to run your money like Eric Adams, he apparently was running some campaign fraud, running some money with some Turkish officials. If you want to do stuff like that, it's all good. It's all gravy. You just have to play ball. Because all of these politicians, especially the ones in D.C., are sleazy. They're dirty as hell. It's crazy how you go into the United States Congress broke, or presidency or whatever position with just an average amount of money in your life savings, and all of a sudden 2-3 years later you're a millionaire, like Nikki Haley, for example, running money with the military industrial complex. So we know these politicians are dirty, and like I said before, the FBI, Joe Biden, they don't give a damn about Eric Adams, what he was doing with Turkey. They just want to punish him. And I said before, maybe it was a warning. Maybe they just wanted to publicly whip you, but it looks like it's a hit job. This is political assassination. Eric Adams, your days are numbered. So let's get into the story of this sexual assault thing that allegedly may have or may not have happened 30 years ago. The mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, has been accused of sexual assault in a court filing submitted late on Wednesday. The summons against Adams alleges that the plaintiff was sexually assaulted by defendant Eric Adams in New York in 1993 while they both worked for the city of New York. It's crazy. Every time they come out like they tried with Trump, said he raped somebody. They said Brett Kavanaugh raped somebody. It's always 30 years ago, 35 years ago, where there was no evidence, no witnesses, nobody remembers anything. And usually the defendant is like, I don't even know who the hell you are. Like some lady said, what was it, 35 in 1980 or something like that, 1982. Trump was on an airplane and he just put his finger out and touched some lady's butt. Like, what? 35 years ago? It's crazy. So they do this because they can just pay some lady to come out and say something happened to her. And a lot of people are on that train where it's believe all women. So when they hit you with this right here, it stirs up the radicals and they come out and protest against you and eventually, a lot of times, forces you out of office. But Trump and Kavanaugh, it didn't work on them. They tried their best to, especially those Kavanaugh hearings. I remember seeing ladies there shrieking. Some lady interrupted one of his Senate hearings, his confirmation hearings, and they just let her talking about how she was great and such terrible things happened to her. She was crying, emotional, and people were like, oh my God, I want to give her a hug. Turns out she made it up. She was an actor. But these political hit jobs, man, it's crazy. It was filed under the Adult Survivors Act, a New York state law which provided a 1-year look-back window for adult sexual misconduct accusers to file civil lawsuits that previously would have been barred due to the statute of limitations. So what's this about? This is about Trump. So New York, their Trump derangement syndrome is so heavy in there that they had some accuser in New York against Trump, but the statute of limitations was out. So they created a special law just to go after Trump, even though it didn't work. But they created this law to go after Trump, and now they're using it against Eric Adams. The window expires on 24 November. You see what I'm saying? So it's already over now, but she's put in the claim ahead of time. It seems like it's unconstitutional when you just open up some law, and we all know you only create this specific law just to go after one man. It seems like some type of state persecution going on here. But anyways, the summons adds that the accusation concerns sexual assault, battery, and employment discrimination on the basis of plaintiff's gender and sex, retaliation, hostile work environment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Yeah, Eric Adams, you in trouble. You in a heap of trouble. You getting the Trump treatment. You are getting the treatment that Republicans get all the time because the Democrats hate Republicans. So you have these shitbag leftists. They will do anything. They will destroy a man's life off of a lie. I'm not saying this is a lie. We don't know. But I'm saying based on the track record of these political hit jobs, it's probably a lie. More than likely. More likely than not, this is total BS. But it's being used against a Democrat this time. Asked about the allegation, a City Hall spokesperson said the mayor does not know who this person is. Thanos, I don't even know who you are. If they ever met, he doesn't recall it, but he would never do anything to physically harm another person and vigorously denies any such claim. The 3-page summons does not detail the alleged sexual assault. Of course it doesn't, because you still need time. They got writers, script writers. They need time to come up with some story of what happened. The Guardians were holding the name of Adams accused as the allegation involves sexual assault. The summons also names the New York City Police Department's Transit Bureau and New York City Police Department's Guardians Association social organization as defendants 30 years ago. So I guess you got to throw that in to make the story sound more credible. The accuser's attorney, Megan Goddard, said Goddard Law is thankful for the Adult Survivors Act, which has given so many women the opportunity to seek justice. Okay, so we get it. We see what's going on here. So Eric Adams is on the fire. Eric Adams has been Me Too. So first, the FBI opened a probe against him, saying you're corrupt, you ran money with the Turkish officials, we're going to publicly embarrass you, we're going to leak all the documents of our investigation, and we're going to come at you like we the mob, You're in New York, you're a New Yorker. Okay, so we're going to come up here like the mob, and we're going to come up to you in broad daylight, make your bodyguard step aside, and we're going to snatch your stuff right from you. How about that? So they did that to him, and now he's being Me Too. So it looks like his days are numbered. He's in a heap of trouble. So I want to see if Eric Adams is still going to be talking about this issue, because we still got stuff going on. New York is still being hit with 10 to 12,000 illegal immigrants a month. They made this shelter. They spent millions of dollars building this upgraded version of a tent city out there off of the harbor and the old federal airstrip, where they built all these tents, built a cafeteria out of one of the tents, and the migrants refused it. So we're pushing December. Winter is coming, and it's getting very cold in New York. So the crisis is going to get worse. We got a lot of illegal immigrants up there, a lot of people still on the streets. These hotels are being ran down. These former luxury hotels are being ran down. And the residents are getting more and more antsy as word gets out. They spread it on TikTok. Word gets out on YouTube how these migrants are getting special treatment, how these immigrants are being put before homeless veterans and everything. Illegal immigrants first, Americans last has been the Democrat policy. So it's only going to get worse in New York, and Eric Adams is going to be under pressure. He's already cutting the budget. He said a 15% cut across the board. He started with 5%. He announced his 5% cut, and people like Cardi B, they went crazy up there in New York. So what's going to happen when he says, hey, there's another 5% cut? What's going to happen when they eventually get to the point where they have to raise taxes on the New York residents to fund illegal immigrants? It's crazy up there in New York, and I'm curious to see what Eric Adams is going to do. Is he going to speak out on this? So if you enjoyed today's episode, leave a like, share it, and I'll see you guys next time.